We used to give people free replacements if they had any issues with their sheets, if they ripped them or if they spilled something on them or their dog tore them up or their cat. We would say, hey, no sweat, here's a free replacement. And people would just send us these long multi-paragraph emails saying, I've never been treated this way by a company before. I am totally blown away. And then it leads to a review, and then it leads to 10 other sales. And so I was a big believer in treating people the way that I wanted to be treated by other companies, and I still do that.
That's Colin Macintosh, CTO recruiter by day and side hustle entrepreneur by night. Colin got fired at age 27, and somewhere between the pink slip, the margaritas, and a movie that he'd watched, he got an idea. The idea? A eucalyptus bedsheets brand that he built, scaled, and exited late last year, called Sheets and Giggles. But we're not here just to talk about that. I also wanted him to tell us about Cheap Compost, because it's exactly the kind of side hustle that I love the most. Simple, low cost, profitable, and scalable. We also dive into his latest side hustle, Sheets Resume, an AI-powered resume builder that he tells us is producing 30,000 resumes a month. At first, when you hear about it, it sounds like an overnight success. Until we find out about how a years-old Reddit post turned out to be driving a lot of the traffic. And when it came time to build on that, Colin took the game-changing lessons that he'd learned from Sheets and Giggles, which you'll learn today, and applied them all. The thread running through all of this, Colin genuinely gives a damn about his customers, about the problems he's solving, and about the people he builds with. And as you'll hear, that's not just good character, it's good business. I'm Joan Posavy, and this is Side Hustle Hero. Welcome, Colin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally connect.
You have so many side hustle related accolades to your name. Honestly, it was a challenge for me to decide even where to begin this conversation. But before we drill down on two of your side hustles, I want to start with a company that you built that must have taught you a lot of lessons that guided the success of those side hustles. The company I'm referring to, Sheets and Giggles, led to your claim to fame of doing a belly flop onto a bed on Good Morning America. How did you end up on that stage, Colin?
Yeah, so that's a main hustle. That's definitely a main hustle. I started that company in 2017. I got fired from my last startup job. I was 27 years old, and we all got laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday. And I was out and I was talking to my coworkers, and I said, I'm going to start a bed sheets business called Sheets and Giggles. And they all thought I was drunk, which I was. We were at a baseball game after we got laid off. What else do you do after you get laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday? You go out and you drink margaritas with your coworkers. So 3 weeks later, I incorporated Sheets and Giggles. I did a crowdfunding campaign in May 2018. We raised almost $300,000 in pre-orders. And then I shipped our first box October 2018, and then our first $1 million month was November 2020. So it was a very meteoric 2-year rocket ship. And then navigating COVID, was supply chain crisis, all these different things. It was really incredible. Hired a team of 15 people, raised about $5 or $6 million of venture capital, and I ended up exiting that business late last year. So I'm officially no longer part of Sheets and Giggles. The company's still operating under new ownership, and It has allowed my ADHD to completely take over and have a bunch of fun side hustles now on top of my main full-time work.
Okay. And in a sentence or two, what was the company or is the company, Sheets and Giggles?
Yeah, it's probably a good place to start. Is like people are like $1 million a month of what? Yeah, so I always take it for granted, but at Sheets and Giggles, we sold bed sheets. Pretty easy elevator pitch. They were made out of eucalyptus trees. So we had mattresses, pillows, sheets, all made out of sustainable materials. I was very passionate about that company. I worked for most of my late 20s and early 30s on it. It was my baby and still is. And I learned a lot of lessons, like you said.
So what were the main lessons that you brought to your side hustles from that experience? Maybe the top three.
I think the marketing piece, absolutely. And specifically on the market. So I'll break down the marketing into two things. It's the tactical piece of how to get people to a website, right? And how to convert them. And then there's the brand building piece. And so maybe those are two separate things. There's like a marketing piece of like how to drive traffic, how to drive interest. But then there's the brand building piece that is like how to build a authentic brand that is very you, that people resonate with and that want to be a part of. And then I think the third thing is probably just the customer experience and how important it is to have a really, really strong user experience, what that looks like, and treating the customer the way that we want to be treated by other companies. So those are probably the three big things. And then honestly is the Side Hustle podcast. So I will say that a honorable mention of a thing that I learned is I probably never want to raise money again for a business. I probably will always want to bootstrap and do revenue funded businesses. And that's not anything against my investors. I actually loved all my investors as people. Several of them are still my very good friends, but I just found it exhausting. I didn't realize this when I was 27, that you're getting on this treadmill of venture capital, of exit, of ROI, and you stop working for yourself the moment that you raise money and you are again working for other people. And most entrepreneurs get into the business of entrepreneurship because they're tired of working for other people. So raising money is a good way to trap yourself in that same cycle.
And so you feel that you've got a lot less freedom and a lot more time is spent dealing with the investors.
My investors are pretty passive overall, but it's more of like the expectation and what you're actually working towards is not yours anymore. It's ours. So you're still part of you're part owner, you're part of the outcome, but it's just you have to write, the updates and the quarterly updates and the here's what we're doing and the scrutiny and the catch-up calls. So yeah, there is a lot of time and that sort of thing, but it's more, I think, the feeling.
Okay. You mentioned three of those lessons. The last one you mentioned was the customer experience. And I'm finding more and more that is really diminishing in a lot of companies because of AI.
How do you find that it's diminishing? I'm curious.
The interaction with a customer, you could tell is very automated now. To me, it's losing that personal touch. And sometimes I'll even say, is this a bot I'm talking to or is this a real person?
Even back in 2017, when I started Sheets and Giggles, one of the hard rules I had is when somebody emails customer care, we're not going to email them back that stupid automated reply of thanks for your email. Have you checked our FAQs?
Right.
Every time I get that from a company and they're like, have you checked our FAQs? I always think to myself, oh no, I haven't. I'm a fucking idiot. Thank you. Wow. I didn't think about going on your website and seeing if I could solve my own problem. Like, it's so infantilizing and it's just insulting to be like, hey, you've taken the time to reach out to a company, to find the email, to write to us, to put your thoughts on paper. And now I'm going to be like, we'll get back to you within 72 hours. In the meantime, try to solve your own fucking problem. So I always said, like, we will reply ASAP within 12 hours is the maximum. And it's a lot sooner. I think our average time to response is like under 2 hours. And we will answer you in plain English from a human being. And if you bring up something that we did wrong, we are going to say, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. Now we're going to go fix it. Here's a $10 gift card for Amazon or for our website or whatever, for thanking you for pointing that out for us.
Nice.
And so the customer experience to me was so personal. And we ended up, because of that, our first like 10,000 customers were like the biggest brand advocates, and they would go out and just tell people about Sheets and Giggles, and you have to try these sheets. And the best part about that category was they're using your product every day. There are very few products, your phone, your laptop, maybe your coffee, like that you're going to, even your clothes, you don't wear the same clothes every day. Right. You shouldn't. And so there's very few things like car, bed sheets, like coffee. And so that's why people become such incredibly strong brand advocates, is they're sleeping in it every night. They wake up in the morning, they're thinking about it. They see a social media post from us, and then they talking to somebody that day, and somebody's like, I couldn't sleep last night. And they're like, oh my gosh, you have to try. So that customer experience, right now it's been, even a Sheets resume, I answer every single customer email that we get myself, and I respond usually within a couple hours, even though they've been working.
Because that's a side hustle, and we will get to that. But I could see that growth then in part being driven because of that customer care that you were really giving. And if something went wrong with the product, it sounded like you were jumping on it right away. And now this person becomes an even bigger fan.
We used to give people free replacements if they had any issues with their sheets, if they ripped them, or if they spilled something on them, or their dog tore them up, or their cat. We would say, hey, no sweat. Here's a free replacement. And people would just send us these long, multi-paragraph emails saying, I've never been treated this way by a company before. I am totally blown away. And then it leads to a review, and then it leads to 10 other sales. And so I was a big believer in treating people the way that I wanted to be treated by other companies. And I still do that.
Yeah. And that probably came out in your second point that you made, and that was the importance of branding. And I suppose authenticity, and I think you even mentioned like finding one's voice. What's one tip or idea or lesson you learned on the branding piece from Sheets and Giggles?
The number one thing is that the brand should be the founder's style. So there's 12 major brand archetypes. There's hero, magician, sage, outlaw, jester, lover, explorer, inventor. I'll see if I can name all of them. Every man.
It sounds like a Tony Robbins seminar.
Sorry. So basically, I tell people, and I do brand identity maps. I actually own brandidentitymap.com.
Of course you do, Colin.
that will be my next side hustle, is I'm going to be helping people automate the process of doing a brand identity map. I find that most business owners don't do it, but it's the most important exercise. It takes a couple hours. And the brand identity map will help you decide what your brand archetype is, what your core value props are, your features, your benefits, your limbic hot buttons, your emotional appeal, your reptilian hot buttons, your positioning statement. And the number one thing I've learned is that I'm a jester. That's what I am. I know that about myself. I know who I am. And so the brands that I start they must be funny first.
And hence the name Sheets and Giggles.
Yeah, I am who I am. It hit me like a punch in the face. I remember I was watching a movie one night with Miles Teller and Jonah Hill. It's called The War Dogs, and I was watching it back in like June 2017. And the guy, one of the main characters, Miles Teller, he's selling these sheets out of the back of his pickup, and he ends up having to burn all the inventory because nobody buys them. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. He bought all this inventory. He didn't do any pricing theory. He doesn't understand his customer, or no go-to-market strategy. I turned to my ex-girlfriend and I was like, pause the movie. And I wrote a business plan for a bedsheets company that night. And I thought, what's a good name for this company? And Sheets and Giggles just right away. Yeah. And bought the domain, got the social handles, and then I incorporated it, I think, 4 or 5 months later.
Fantastic. I'd like to, pardon the pun, dig into Dirt Cheap, your composting side hustle.
I love it.
What opportunity did you see in the market that led you to think that could be a success?
So funny. I like that you're picking up what I'm putting down. I like it. So the Dirt Cheap Compost, my wife and I, we were actually customers of another compost company in Colorado. And we're big eco-friendly people. My wife actually had an eco-friendly homes podcast that she interviewed me on, which is how we started dating. No joke. Not to be,
really?
not to be weird. But basically, we were at a barbecue in Denver. She asked for my number. She found out what I did with Sheets and Giggles, and then she was like, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And she got my number, and then she said, "Before the podcast, do you want to go out for a pre-podcast drink?" And that was when I was like, all right, I don't know if this is...
They're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, you got a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. And then it was really nice. It was 2020 and we got married in 2024. And anyway, when we were living in Colorado, I think in 2022, we kept getting our price raised by our compost provider. And at one point, I think it got to like over $40 a month. And I was like, we're paying $500 a year for somebody to come to our door and pick up our food waste. And they haven't done any marketing in our townhouse community. There's 50 other homes here that they haven't dropped a single flyer. They haven't emailed me a referral or affiliate link to sign up my neighbors. They haven't put me to work as a brand advocate. They just raised our price. And because they're like, oh, we have one home in this area and it's very expensive. It's like, no, dude, go get more homes in this area and bring down your per stop cost. Anyway.
Those are all lessons that you just laid out, Colin. You think of these things like it's nothing. Who else would not think of that?
Who wouldn't think?
Who wouldn't have think of that?
So my wife, she had a little bit of free time. She was not working full time at the time. And I think in early 2023, we incorporated your Cheap Compost. We didn't really do anything, but we set up the website, we wrote a blog post, and then I'll never forget, it was like July of 2023. I was just like going through my email and I was like, oh shit, we got a customer. And so we started driving out once a week to be dropped off the bin, and we would pick up the food waste and we would compost it. And then it was two people, then it was 7 people. And then we grew it to like over 100 people very quickly. And that's when we started really like leaning into it. We would drop off flyers at coffee shops and stuff. It was my wife's business much more than mine. And it was like her very fun project. But I would help her with some of the marketing stuff and the website and then the customer care stuff. And then we ended up selling that business. We left Colorado early 2025. And we ended up merging with Compost Colorado, and all of our customers became part of Compost Colorado. And I really loved the team there, really loved Van, the founder of Compost Colorado. And we were leaving town. We had 100 plus customers that we didn't want to leave hanging. And Compost Colorado was very happy to have the new business. So it was great.
Nice. How did that deal come together to eventually sell?
We were on a panel with Van at the CSU, I think, climate change conference back in mid 2024. And I think Van was like, he's a good guy, but I think he was a little annoyed with us because we were dirt cheap compost. He was 40 plus bucks a month and we were in the 20s. He came up to us after he was on a panel with my wife, Madison, and Van were on a panel together.
And he was the CEO of that company that bought you out?
He was CEO of Compost Colorado, yeah. And he came up to us afterwards and he was like, hey guys, have you thought about raising your pricing? Because we're losing a lot. A lot of people are emailing us that there's this lower priced option in the area. And I know you guys is a fun project for you, but this is like a serious business for me and my team. And how competitive I am. I was like, yeah, like we're able to do it and we're profitable and we enjoy doing it. We work with local farmers. Let's stay in touch. And maybe if you ever want to buy the company, you can raise our price if you want. And in fact, it's funny when we sold the business, we did negotiate that he would not raise the price on our customers for at least 1 year. And so we had a nice little 1 year grandfather period there with them.
Nice. So, very nice.
Yeah. And he became a good friend. I think that he respected the business I built with Sheets and Giggles, and I respected, he knew me from other places in Colorado, and he knew Madison as well. I think he actually was a guest on Madison's podcast at one point. So Colorado is kind of a small entrepreneur community. So we were all aware of each other and friendly competition.
You mentioned the farmers. So where did you drop off the compost?
There were 2 farmers that we worked with in Lakewood, Colorado. We were dropping it off at an industrial composter briefly early on, but then we moved to small farms. And it was awesome. It was such a cool circular thing that we were doing I think by my calculations, we diverted over 100,000 pounds of food waste from landfills. But we would bring it to these local farms and they would turn it into fertilizer, and that would turn into food, and they'd sell that back into the community at farmers markets. And it was just like so cool how, not to get metaphysical, but the way that creation folds in on itself is so cool, to where you can pick up these buckets of food waste elsewhere, put it back into the soil, have new food emerge and new plants, and like, it's just creation eating itself continuously. Yes. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah. And being able to contribute to that cycle.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with that. And then that was, I guess, side hustle number 1.
One of the biggest challenges there would have been educating the customer on what they can and can't put in there.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things that I think I did really well that other compost companies weren't doing was having engaging, formatted, modern emails, right? And then taking that experience from Sheets and Giggles and basically being like, okay, I know what grabs attention. I know what people will read and what they won't. I know the length of the email, the subject line, like whereas every other composter is God bless them. They're just people who love the earth and that's what they want to do. And that's what and so their emails would be like novels, right?
Yes.
And just, and their subject lines were completely, I could delete it without a second thought. And so we did a really good job of just automating the education where we had these flows set up that when you sign up to be a customer, the day you get your bucket, the first week of pickup, 2 weeks into your service, and just basically these checkpoints with people. And it was pretty simple, honestly. Like I like the business for the simplicity.
Yes. I love side hustles like that too. And so the subject line, something catchy, the body of the email and the headings, again, straight to the point and brief.
Yep. And that was a small business. I think we grew it to about $40,000 a year. It wasn't major. It was just a small side hustle. And that was within like a year or two. And I think I would have liked to have kept growing that if I had stayed in Colorado. But once we were moving, it was, just time to part ways.
Yeah. Did you do anything unique or off the beaten path to get known?
Yeah, we would drop, this is Madison's idea, actually. We had these compostable flyers that had seeds in them that you could plant and wildflowers would grow. And we would drop these flyers off. My favorite time to do this was Halloween and Thanksgiving, because there's so much what we would do with the pumpkins is we had these flyers that had this big pumpkin face on them.
Okay.
And it was like, what did it say? It said something like "bring me back" or "reincarnate me" or something like that, or save my soul. And it was basically like saying, don't shove your pumpkin into the dumpster. Sign up for a composting service, and we will pick up your pumpkin your first week of your service. And we got a lot of great. I used code Halloween for 1 month free. And so people were getting the pumpkin removed. They're getting the free month. Those were very successful flyers. And we just tuck them right into the jack-o'-lanterns are great. They had a little top. You just take the top off, tuck the flyer in, you put the top back on. And yeah, that was great. And then we do stuff at cafes and flyers and that sort of thing. And Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, those are all big activations for us.
Right.
So a lot of food waste, Yeah.
Having fun campaigns like that just bring so much energy to an organization. One of my side hustles long time ago was in the flower business. And in the flower industry, Mother's Day is number one.
Oh, yeah. It probably makes your whole year.
And I'm dating myself here, but this was a time of the local newspaper. And so I had an ad with a telephone. It was something very simple, like your mother called and wants you to call her back. And that was it. And so it was a lot of curiosity. So people would call. And of course, there was a voice message from us. There was a storyline that led to she wants you to pick up flowers for her kind of thing.
That's awesome. I love that. It's really super clever marketing. We took a different route at Sheets and Giggles for Mother's Day, because Mother's Day was also, I think, our second biggest holiday next to Christmas, buying nice bedding for your mom. And cool sheets for hot moms was our,
that.
very, very, very succuseful marketing campaign. And we had so much fun with that. And we did that every year. And we would do YouTube videos, and the emails got 60% open rates, and it was great. So those are fun days. The copywriting at S&G, I used to write all the copy myself early on, and for 2-3 years. And then I hired a guy named Chris he was writing with a scalpel, man. This guy was so good.
Wow.
But I remember the first Mother's Day email I ever wrote was like 2018. And I was like, as the spring turns to summer and the nights get hotter and the bedroom gets steamier, I want your thoughts should be filled with how hot your mom is. And people were like, what the fuck? And I was like, because she's probably in her 50s or 60s and going through menopause, and it's a very serious and difficult time in her life. And you could get her cooling eucalyptus sheets to show her that you're thinking about her and what she's going through. And people were like, oh. It was like,
now I get it. Right.
Yeah. It was a great juxtaposition. It was super. Yeah, it was very comical. So I loved doing those campaigns and being a little weird, being a little out there. It was always a lot of fun.
Now there's a tip that our side hustle audience wasn't thinking they would be getting today. Mother's Day gift idea. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. People love buying gifts from moms.
Well, you sold dirt cheap and you just had to create another side hustle. Tell us
Mhm.
about your AI resume builder, Sheets
Yeah,
Resume.
so I used to be a recruiter back in my career, and funny enough, now after Sheets and Giggles, my full-time job is back in recruiting,
Okay.
and I'm doing executive recruiting this time. So I'm hiring mostly chief technology officers and a bunch of other high-level VP of engineering, head of engineering folks. So my full-time job now is recruiting, which is funny. And I did cut my teeth as a recruiter 12, 13 years ago. I hired myself at one of my startup clients, and that kind of began my startup journey.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's a great way to leave a recruiting job is hiring yourself into an open role. And I just love helping people find jobs and careers. It is the most meaningful, gratifying thing.
Mm.
And Pete's resume is a poorly named. My partners keep asking me to change it. It means nothing to anyone except
Right.
for me, but it's nostalgic for me. And it basically is now the number one or number two AI resume builder on Google. If you search for AI resume builder, you'll find us and maybe Canva, maybe resume.com. And it's just awesome. I think for AI cover letter generator, we are literally, we're behind Grammarly, but we're number two outranking ChatGPT. But yeah, so basically it's been really gratifying. My resume template has been used by like 7 or 8 million people at this point. And it's totally free resume template. The AI resume builder is not free. That has a cost to operate and to build and maintain. And we have a build by voice option where you can just dump a stream of consciousness into the resume builder and it will format and make everything beautifully written and concise. I've trained it myself in terms of how to write, and I think I'm a very good writer. And our resume output, people are raving about it in terms of it sounds like a person, it doesn't sound like a robot, like all these different things. And no M dashes. We never
Yes.
we never let it say orchestrated. You didn't orchestrate anything. You weren't a conductor. You planned a meeting, and it's okay to say that. And we have very strict philosophies. We have one format. I hate every other resume builder on the internet. They have 100 formats to choose from, or 200. And it just drives me crazy because any resume builder that has more than one format is not trying to help you. They are selling sneakers to you. Do you want green? Do you want blue? Do you want red? They don't care if you want 2 columns, 1 column, 4 columns, graphics, icons, doodles, headshot, blue. Like
So what you're saying is this works, so this is what I'm offering you?
Correct. And if you have 100 resume formats, mathematically, one of those will have a higher interview rate than all the other 99.
Mm.
And if you're still offering me the 99, you don't care if I get more interviews. You don't care if I get more jobs. You're only trying to give me customizable options for me to hit that dopamine receptor in my brain where I feel like I'm choosing my resume. And we say, here's the format. Here's what you use. Use our AI builder. We'll do it for you. Upload any resume. Type in your LinkedIn. We'll build it for you without you lifting a finger. Or you can do it yourself from scratch. And we make 30,000 resumes a month with the AI builder. And it is so awesome to help people in this way. And we get amazing reviews. And it's just so meaningful to me. I think the second day we launched it, we had our first $1,000 day, which was just crazy. So yeah, it's an overnight success, but the thing that you're missing, the piece that you're missing is I wrote a Reddit post back in 2018 that was the most popular advice for resumes on Reddit. In fact, if you search resume template Reddit or resume advice Reddit, it's basically the first results 8 years later. And I'm blown away by the reception to this post. It has become the Reddit resume guide of lore on Reddit history.
So did you somehow leverage that when you launched this?
I did. So basically, I had been leveraging it not leveraging it, but I had been basically doing one-on-one resume reviews for a year leading up to the AI resume builder. And so my buddy Nate and we just got so many emails from people being like, hey, can you do a resume review? And I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm so busy, I can't. And then I think one person emailed me just this really heartbreaking story about how because I turned them down They found somebody else, and that person charged them $2,000 for a resume review. And then they sent me their resume, and they're like, "Is this good? Did they do a good job?" And it was just a terrible, terrible resume, and it broke my heart because now this person's out $2,000. They're still jobless. And I started making time to do the one-on-one reviews. I didn't have a lot of time, obviously, running my company, but I probably could do one or two a month, broadly. But I still had to charge $300-400, which was on the low end for resume reviews.
Yes.
But I had to charge something, otherwise I couldn't say no to people, and I also like couldn't justify my time. And so for about a year, I had put something in that Reddit post of like, if you need one-on-one help, for certain cases, reach out to me and I'll help. So I did have people coming to a website that we had set up, and that was basically leading into my email inbox. And then we put the resume template on that website, and we were like, all right, here, now it's hosted on this website. It's not just a Microsoft Word download link. And then we ended up doing AI resume builder, and just the natural traffic flow that was already coming to the site for resume review inquiries just exploded into users. So it was awesome.
Wow. Well,
so
how did
all you have to do is write a really good Reddit post, maintain it for 6 or 7 years, answer tens of thousands of questions in your spare time and comments and PMs.
Right.
And you too can be an overnight success. So,
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
So how did you actually create the AI resume builder from the point where from initially, here's just an idea, to your $1,000 first day?
Well, it's actually my buddy Nate's idea. I'm not a developer. I'm not a software engineer. And now with Claude, everybody's a software engineer. It's amazing. But 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whenever we started working, 2 years ago, I think, Nate called me and he was like, "Hey, do you want me to put an AI wrapper on our advice? Do you want me to take our best advice and turn it into a fully functional builder?" And I was like, and he's my old recruiting colleague, this guy, Nate. And now he's a software engineer, actually. He just got laid off last week from Eventbrite, but he's quite a good software engineer. The fact that he got laid off means that he might be working more full time on the resume builder, actually. Yeah. But he's a great dude. He's one of my favorite people. And he actually taught me how to recruit way back in the day. And so he's a former recruiter, current software engineer. He knows the market really, really well. And he and I both know it very, very well. And so he put his head down, started building this thing. And I was doing project management for it, kind of product management, my vision in terms of, no, this has to go here. This has to go here. Here's the user flow. Here's the start to finish. And I wrote like probably a dozen pages of instructions for the AI. So I trained it on a lot of my writing, and I had a bunch of rules and stuff that's just only obvious to me, my philosophies. And I have very strong opinions about resumes and why they should look a certain way and sound a certain way. And took about, I think, probably he took him 4 or 5, 6 months. And this is before Claude Code, so it was all built line by line.
Okay.
And I remember he sent it to me when it was done in like late 2024, and I was like, oh damn! I was like, this is great. And we published it, and it was just pretty beautiful. So I'm people ask me how I built it or how to build something as a non-technical founder. With Claude, now, I could have built the whole thing with Claude. In my opinion, I could have done it now. I don't know if that's true. It maybe 80% of it. There's a lot of devil in the details here. But now anyone can get something off the ground in a day. I've launched probably 7 websites in the last month with Claude Code. And it's just unbelievable.
How do you do that? With Claude?
So actually, I'm building a side hustle to automate this for other people, but
because you don't have enough on the go. Let's do another side hustle.
I should probably look into getting some Vyvanse or Adderall or something. But yeah, so basically, what I do is I find that I'm very good at this because of my branding background and because of my consumer background. Mm-hmm. I'm able to understand intrinsically the aesthetics of what a website should look like, the user experience, the flow, why this should be here or there. Because if you just tell Claude, make me a website, it's just going to make you a very basic website. It doesn't understand your goals or what you're trying to do or anything. So you almost have to be a project manager with it and you have to iterate on it quite a lot. But you're basically working with an expert level, top tier software engineer in Claude, and it will do whatever you tell it to do. But you may need to understand, okay, hey, this should be written in this language. Or sometimes I tell it, like, I'm like, hey, look for a JavaScript library that does X, Y, and Z. So I am helping guide it, but man, no, it's doing everything on its own. And then I take the code, I upload it usually to Webflow, which is a hosting website for, it used to be like a site builder. Now it's probably most of their sites are just probably custom code from Claude.
Right.
And you embed the code into Webflow or in any other website host, anywhere where you can host code, which you can find a lot of different websites. And then it costs $18 a month for every website. And I publish it. And it's great. It's SEO optimized, and it's incredibly simple. I built a website the other day for this restaurant that I go to a lot that I love. They don't have a website. So I sat there and I ate my lunch and I built them a website and I showed it to them and they were like, holy shit. And they caught my meal and I got their credit card set up, and that kind of gave me the idea of, and this is going to be a big business and a lot of people are going to do this. So I don't think that I have any illusion that I can consolidate this market. But I think that building websites for small businesses that don't have websites is going to be, imagine every software agency, every web development agency in the world right now is freaking out because Claude both allows them to have 100 times the clients that they usually have and drives the price of their service down to zero. Because any one of us, you, me, can start a website agency tomorrow and build websites for every small business in the world and get it done in 48 hours or 24 hours instead of 3 to 6 months. Right. So we're about to see a gigantic collapse or shakeup of the entire web development agency.
And at this point, like you said, in the case of Sheets resume, it could bring it to maybe 80%, but at this point,
it's very, we have AI mock interviews. A lot of the stuff that we have that you can't do with Claude is training the AI, relearning, training your models, model development. Like there's a lot of AI work under the hood that we have with our resume builder, cover letter generator, and AI interview practice. And now we use our data to relearn and retrain the models based on, we have over 100,000 users. And so there's a lot of, I'm glad we moved on this before AI. So that way we could actually build like a very robust version of this that's not just a vibe coded resume builder. But at the same time, like you could probably build the guts of the product pretty reliably with AI coding at this point, just not the logic and the training.
And the fact that Nate is your partner in this and he's a developer, your cost to launch would have been probably pretty minimal then?
Zero. I offered to pay him, and instead he very wisely chose to take a large percentage of the revenue or the profits. And I think that's worked out really well for him. And yeah, it's definitely, I was going to say a second ago, knowing people, meeting people, going out, making connections, shaking hands, going to networking events, like having people who are become your confidants and your friends and stuff. Like when it was time for me to do the resume reviews, I called Nate and I said, hey, I want to do these one-on-one reviews. I don't have time to do them all myself. Do you want to do them and make a little extra coin? And he said, I could probably find time. And we started doing them together. And then that kind of percolated into the idea of doing this in an automated way. And so I think the greatest lesson I can give people is just do things, meet people, be good to others, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. And eventually you'll get a phone call from somebody at some point in your career who's like, hey man, like I have this business idea and I would love to do it with you. Yeah.
So did you mention 30,000 users a month?
Yeah. And
so you've got your web hosting costs.
Yeah. Token costs, AI costs. We've got some marketing costs. We have email, SMS marketing costs and sending out those emails to folks. We have our payment processing with Stripe, credit card processing. bookkeeping, accounting. I make sure I have everything buttoned up. It's not like massively profitable or gigantic game changer for my life, but like it's pretty wonderful passive income. It's great.
I was going to say, it still sounds like it's a six-figure side hustle.
Yeah, it's a six-figure side hustle. Yeah, it's great.
Is it just the two of you now?
We have a third partner as well as the business. Funny enough, also named Nate. And I am thinking about hiring somebody on the marketing side. I did hire an intern to do some marketing work for me on the YouTube channel. And he made a lot of AI Colin thumbnails for my videos, which frankly, I don't really like. So I don't know. I need to figure out a way to do eye-grabbing YouTube thumbnails that aren't like
right,
Mr. Beastification nonsense.
Yeah, it's got to be. But clearly, it's got to be your voice, your brand.
Yeah.
This is still a side hustle for you. How do you juggle that with your full-time job as a recruiter?
I basically don't work on this outside of the hours of maybe, I don't know, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And so I'm working every hour I'm awake right now, which is like not the best place that I want to be. I get up usually around 8 or 9 o'clock and start work. Most of my company for my full-time job is on the West Coast, which is nice, but usually have my first meeting around 10 a.m. and then usually work that job till 8, 9 p.m. So maybe 11-hour days. And then I'll pack up my bag and I'll go to a local kava bar or something. And I sit with my laptop and I have 3 laptops. And I sit with my personal laptop and I just work on the resume builder in the evening. And sometimes, some days I don't have time for it and I'll bring my work laptop and I will work on the recruiting piece until 2 or 3 in the morning. Like the CTO recruiting is so busy and hectic and competitive and bloodthirsty, and not me. I'm like a golden retriever in a pool of sharks. But like the market is very very hot and tough. And I'm probably working at Riviera right now. I'm probably working like at least 60 hours a week as I get up to speed. I'm probably putting in too many hours, my boss might say, but it's my first full-time job. It's my first job working for anybody else in almost a decade. And so I want to make sure I give it my all and that I put in that founder energy to getting started. Yeah. And then if I work for 16 hours a day, then I can do 12 for Riviera and 4 for the resume builder and eat at some point,
Mm-hmm. You've won multiple pitch competitions, and I understand that you love pitching on stage in front of a crowd, right? What do you love about it?
It's like a drug. There's like a huge dopamine rush. There's obviously a big serotonin release at the end when you crush it. But for me, I think that commanding an audience and commanding a crowd, like having 1,000 people in the palm of your hand, hanging on the next word is like very, very, very intoxicating feeling. I definitely understand why politicians and pastors and all sorts of people love being in front of a crowd and riling them up. For me, it's like more about leading people to water and like leading them on a journey somewhere and building a visual, almost like a visualization in their head of what I'm talking about using language. And so that to me is very, very challenging to use language in a way that brings people on that mental journey. Mm-hmm. And I just love it when it goes well. And my rule is I always have 2 beers before I go on stage, because 1 beer is not enough to loosen you up and 3 beers is too many to keep it together. So,
right.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you for some tips, and there you go. You just gave it to us.
One tactical tip is always write your script. Write every word. Leave room for laughter. Leave room for applause. Do parentheticals where you say pause here, and like practice that script. And the more you practice it, the less memorized it will sound on stage, because there's this curve of, as you practice, it sounds like less and less natural because you're reciting, and then all of a sudden you've recited it enough to where it's just part of your memory, and now you shoot up on this curve of like when you speak it the next time, it's just going to sound like the words are flowing out of you completely naturally.
Because at that point you actually own it.
Exactly. And if you practice too little, if you practice a little bit, it's going to sound very remote or rote and very robotic.
Well, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Colin?
Sheetsresume.com, colindmacintosh.com, or on LinkedIn, Colin Macintosh. I'm very easy to find.
What's your best tip to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
I think that to go on a small rant at the end here, I think that we live in the pretty bad hellscape of like late stage capitalism. And it's funny because like I very much participate in it, right? And I love that meme where it's like, somebody's criticizing society, like we should build a better society. And then somebody else is like, yet you participate in society. Curious. It's okay, yeah, like I gotta eat, you know what I mean? But like we live in this very, I think, overwhelming, soul-crushing machine of capital that's like continually demanding more and more of your time and your life and your soul and your energy. So the main things that I would recommend to people are to think about side hustles as a way to free yourself from that system and a way to lift yourself out of the cycle that you are born trapped into. And I would highly recommend that people take the opportunity now during the early days of AI when it is truly democratized and it is truly empowering to solopreneurs and small business owners. For $20 or $100 a month, you can have an expert level software engineer, graphic designer, video editor, copywriter. Like, you are empowered right now, and I would move on that empowerment and I would build your revenue streams and build your income streams, because if you don't do that, they will start using AI very soon to crowd you out and to erect artificial barriers to entry into certain industries. And you will not be able to crack certain industries because of the AI barrier to entry. And so I would try to create a sense of urgency for people that this is the moment. And then I would also say it's very freeing if you do it well and you're actually able to generate income for yourself. And then even if you're not generating income and you're working on something that you want to see in the world and that you actually care about, like Cheap Compost, I never made much money from Cheap Compost, maybe a couple $100 a month. But I wanted to get rid of food waste. Methane is 20 times more potent than carbon. It's a terrible greenhouse gas. Food rotting in landfills releases methane. Me and my wife and I wanted to do that. And it didn't make money really for us until we sold it, but like it was something that we were passionate about. And so, I think that if you're working for yourself, then you're truly free. And when you're working for others, you're not. So that's kind of my advice. And then I would also just say, be kind to yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. It's very, very easy and exhausting to do that. I have a calendar of quotes from Marcus Aurelius and other Stoics and Epicureans. And I'm not a Stoic or anything like that. I don't like that. I don't subscribe to any one dogma, but I do think that like some of the quotes I read on a daily basis are really important in terms of not comparing yourself to others, not thinking about the wealth that you don't have, not appreciating the wealth that you already have around you in your daily life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Colin, for sharing your hard-won lessons for business success and for being today's Side Hustle hero.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks for a great conversation.
Colin's story reminds us that the overnight successes that we hear about and admire usually have a very long, very unglamorous backstory. A Reddit post, 100 compost pickups, thousands of customer emails answered personally. While overnight successes do happen, from what I've seen, they're rare. So if you're plugging away at something and you're not seeing the results that you seek, you're not alone, and you may be closer than you think. Colin also shared his love of pitching and being in front of a large audience. He advised that you have to practice enough so that the words stop feeling and appearing rehearsed. And as you're practicing, there's a trajectory. Your speech at first sounds robotic, but with enough practice, it sounds natural. When we were talking about that, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about someone who, just the day before, came up to me after a presentation and commented on how natural I seemed at the podium. And that made me smile because it was absolutely not always the way. If you've been with me for a while, you know that I was born with introverted tendencies. My very first presentation, about 35 years ago now, was to a massive audience of 18 people. And I was terrified. But I had experienced such profound results in my own life through a series of goal achievement principles that I became committed to figuring out some way, somehow, to share them with others. And that meant getting better at presenting, whether I liked it or not. It's taken years of honing that skill. And to this day, I spend countless hours preparing a 20-minute keynote. So whatever you're working on right now, the side hustle, the pitch, the skill that you're practicing, keep at it, knowing that the work you put in today will show up for you in the future. Somehow, some way, it'll contribute to a future success. It always does. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. In the description, you'll find links to connect with Colin, as well as the full show notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start and grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.